My name is Isabella Santos. I am 35 years old. 4 years ago, my boss, Benjamin Torres, pulled me aside after a major client pitch and swore he would mentor me to the top if I poured everything into growing the account, but he had already started laying the groundwork to steal the credit and push me out. Right now, I am sitting in the glass-walled conference room of our Albuquerque office at almost 11 at night, staring at printed emails and reports my boss claims prove I leaked sensitive campaign strategies to a rival firm. My stomach is in knots because I know I never sent those yet. The evidence looks damning. I clench my fists under the table. He thinks he has me cornered, but I am not going down without exposing the truth he is hiding before they ruined me completely. If you have ever had a boss you trusted, turn around and try to destroy your reputation at work, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what city you are watching from and how you fought back. I read every single comment, and it truly means the world to me. Now let me take you back to how this nightmare started so you can see exactly how my boss built his trap piece by piece while I was too busy proving myself to notice. I had been at the boutique marketing firm in Albuquerque for 6 years when my boss, Benjamin Torres, first noticed me. I was a mid-level account manager, then handling smaller local clients and working late nights to make sure every campaign hit its targets. My boss had a reputation for spotting talent, and when he promoted me to lead our biggest portfolio after only 2 years under him, it felt like the break I had been waiting for. The client was a regional tech company worth millions in annual billings, and the role came with the promise of a massive performance bonus tied to hitting growth milestones. My boss made it sound like we were a team. He remembered little details about my projects, asked about my weekend plans, and even covered for me once when a deadline slipped because of a vendor error. I thought he saw something special in me. Looking back, those small kindnesses were just the opening moves in a long game I never suspected. I threw myself into the role completely. I brought in new business, streamlined our processes, and turned the account into the firm's star performer. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, used to tease me about how dedicated I was, saying I practically lived at the office. I laughed it off because the work felt rewarding, and my boss kept praising me in team meetings. Small things started shifting about 18 months ago. My boss began keeping his phone face down on every surface during our one-on-one check-ins. He would step out for calls and come back saying it was urgent client business, but the timing never quite added up. One evening, I overheard him in the hallway speaking in a low voice about something being settled by early next year. When I asked casually the next day, he brushed it off with a quick smile and changed the subject. I told myself I was imagining things. After all, he was my boss and the one who had given me this huge opportunity. Then the financial pressure started creeping in. My boss suggested we combine some of our client files for easier team access. It is just practical, he said, in case something happens to you on a vacation or if you are out sick. I need to be able to step in for the good of the account. He framed it as standard procedure for senior leads. When I hesitated, his tone sharpened just a little. Isabella, you are not turning into one of those people who does not trust the team, are you? It made me feel ashamed for even questioning him, so I gave him limited access to a few shared drives. He thanked me warmly and went right back to being the supportive mentor I thought I knew. The late nights at the office multiplied. My boss would stay until midnight 3 or 4 times a week. He claimed it was because he was restructuring major client strategies, but the firm is in Albuquerque, where most businesses close by 6. I found receipts on his desk once for a downtown steakhouse. I had never visited $280 for dinner for 2. When I mentioned it lightly, he had a smooth answer ready. Networking with a potential new partner, he said. You know how these things go. I felt ridiculous for wondering. My coworker, Emma Ruiz, even joked in the break room that my boss was probably just working on his golf game. And we all laughed. The group of us, including my coworker, Ava Lopez, and my coworker, Noah Chen, had become close over the years, or at least I thought we had. Around the same time, my boss started pushing harder about my performance metrics. He said the partners were watching closely and that if we hit certain targets by spring, my bonus could reach $400,000 in vested equity. But he also started dropping hints about updating my employment agreement. Just to protect the firm, he said. What if something happens and you are not here? I need to be able to keep the account running smoothly. It sounded reasonable on the surface. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, pulled me aside one afternoon in the copy room and asked if everything was okay. She had noticed the extra meetings and the way my boss hovered. I brushed it off, but her words stuck with me. Trust your gut, she said quietly before someone walked in. 5 months into the intensified pressure, I had a routine check-in with our senior mentor, Evelyn Nguyen, who had been with the firm for over 20 years and had quietly taken me under her wing. She was the one person outside my immediate team I confided in about the long hours and the subtle shifts with my boss. Evelyn had always been straightforward, the kind of woman who had seen every kind of office politics and never sugarcoated anything. During that meeting, she asked how things were really going with the big account. I gave her the polished version I had been telling everyone. She studied me for a long moment, then closed her office door and lowered her voice. Isabella, I need to show you something before you leave today. Her hands were steady as she opened a folder on her desk. My younger cousin works in the data analytics department downstairs. She came to me last week in tears and told me everything. When I saw your name on the latest internal audit report, I knew I had to talk to you privately. Evelyn laid the papers out one by one. The documents showed that my boss had quietly arranged for a junior analyst to alter key campaign files. He had paid the analyst $40,000 in cash to switch the original strategy documents with forged versions that included leaked competitor data. It made it look like I had copied and shared proprietary information violating the strict integrity clause in my contract. The clause was ironclad. If any senior lead was found guilty of gross misconduct, they forfeited their entire performance bonus and equity stake, and the value rolled over to the team lead who reported it. My boss had been planning this for months. Evelyn explained that her cousin had kept screenshots of the payments and the original unaltered files. My boss had approached the junior analyst separately, claiming it was just a small adjustment to protect the client from a bigger issue. The analyst was drowning in student loans and had agreed. My boss had also been siphoning small amounts from client budgets, totaling $210,000 over time to cover his own mounting problems. I sat there in Evelyn Nguyen's office, feeling the floor tilt under me. My boss was not just trying to steal credit, he was engineering my complete professional destruction, so he could claim the $400,000 bonus and the equity for himself. Evelyn kept her voice calm, but her eyes were serious. There is more, Isabella. He has been seeing your coworker, Ava Lopez, for the past 8 months. Hotel receipts, late dinners, the works. And he owes serious money from online gambling. People who do not wait for payment plans. This whole scheme is his way out. I felt my hands start to shake, but something cold and focused settled in my chest. He had no idea who he had picked as his target. I drove home from that meeting with my face carefully neutral just in case. The firm had installed security cameras in the parking garage 2 years ago, and my boss had access to the feeds. I gave him nothing. When I walked into the office the next morning, my boss was waiting by my desk with that same easy smile that never quite reached his eyes. How was the rest of your evening? He asked. Everything okay with the account? I smiled back, showed him the latest metrics printout, and told him everything was absolutely perfect. I deserved an award for that performance. Inside, I was already calculating how far I could push back before he realized I knew. The following week, I quietly met with our external investigator, Abigail Klein, who Evelyn had recommended. Abigail was ex-corporate security, with 15 years of experience digging up exactly this kind of dirt. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, took detailed notes, and when I finished, she leaned back with a sharp grin. "Your boss made several sloppy mistakes," she said. "Arrogant men always do. Give me 10 days, and I will have proof that will make the partners listen." She delivered in 8 days. The gambling debts were confirmed at $210,000, spread across multiple sites. The embezzlement from client budgets was real. And the affair with my coworker, Ava Lopez, had been going on for 8 months, complete with hotel charges and text messages Abigail had obtained legally. Abigail also uncovered that this was not my boss's first attempt. 3 years earlier, he had targeted another senior manager named Harper Vaughn in the same way. Harper had left the firm quietly after discovering financial irregularities in shared accounts, too embarrassed to fight. Abigail had tracked her down, and Harper was now willing to provide a sworn statement. I met with my best work friend, Sophia Kim, in secret at a small coffee shop on the outskirts of Albuquerque, where no one from the firm would see us. She looked stunned when I showed her the folder. "Isabella," she whispered, "we have to stop him." I nodded, but inside I was already planning the next move. The tension in the office became unbearable. My co-worker, Noah Chen, started avoiding eye contact in the hallways, and my coworker, Emma Ruiz, made a point of copying my boss on every email I sent. I knew the walls were closing in. Then my boss called another late meeting, this time with the entire senior team present. He stood at the head of the table and announced that an internal review had uncovered serious integrity issues with one of our top accounts. He looked straight at me as he said the words. "The evidence is clear." He added, his voice dripping with false concern. "We will be recommending termination for cause effective immediately." My stomach dropped, but I kept my face calm. This was the moment everything would either blow up or finally come crashing down. My boss, Benjamin Torres, stood at the head of the long conference table, the overhead lights casting sharp shadows across the printed reports he had just slid toward me. The rest of the senior team sat in stunned silence. My boss leaned forward, his voice smooth but laced with that false concern he always used when he wanted to twist the knife. "Isabella, the evidence is overwhelming," my boss said, tapping one finger on the top page. "These emails show you forwarding our proprietary campaign strategies to a competitor last month. The timestamps match your login. I have statements from 2 team members confirming they saw you working late on those exact files." He paused, letting the words hang like a threat. "We cannot risk the firm's reputation on this. The partners have already reviewed it and they agree termination for cause is the only option. Effective immediately. You will forfeit the entire performance bonus, an equity stake you were up for. It rolls to the team lead who reported the breach." His eyes flicked to my coworker, Ava Lopez, who sat beside him, with a tiny, satisfied smile she did not even try to hide. I felt the words land like punches to the ribs. $400,000 invested equity I had earned through 3 years of nonstop work, gone in one calculated breath. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, seated 2 chairs down, inhaled sharply, but said nothing. My boss had clearly looped in the right people weeks ago. I forced my voice steady, even though my pulse hammered in my ears. "My boss, I never sent those emails. Those files were altered. I have proof from an internal audit that shows the original versions were swapped." My boss cut me off with a short laugh that carried no warmth. "Proof, Isabella. You are the one under investigation here. Do not make this worse by accusing others. It is the classic move when someone gets caught." The room shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke up. My coworker, Noah Chen, stared at the table as if the wood grain held all the answers. The meeting dragged on for another 40 agonizing minutes, while my boss laid out every piece of the so-called evidence. He had timestamps, login records, even a forged memo with my digital signature. Each new slide felt like another layer of the trap snapping shut. I kept my hands folded in my lap so no one would see them tremble, but inside, I was replaying every late-night conversation I had ever had with him, every time he had praised my work while quietly building this. My boss saved the sharpest jab for the end. He looked straight at me as the team filed out and said quietly enough for only me to hear, "You really thought you were irreplaceable, did you not? Some people just are not built for the big leagues." The words cut deep because they echoed the exact doubt he had planted in me for months, the one that made me question whether I had earned any of this, or if it had all been a setup from the start. I left the office that night with a box of my personal items and a formal letter of termination folded in my purse. The security guard at the front desk would not even look at me. Word had already spread. The next morning, my phone would not stop buzzing with messages from junior staff who had once looked up to me now, asking in careful tones what had happened. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, called me at dawn, her voice shaky. "Isabella, I tried to say something in the meeting, but he pulled me aside afterward and warned me my own performance review was next if I caused trouble. He said the firm cannot afford divided loyalties." I could hear the fear in her tone, and it made my blood run cold. My boss was not just coming after me. He was making sure no one else dared stand in his way. 2 days later, I met with my mentor, Evelyn Nguyen, again. This time at a quiet park bench on the edge of Albuquerque where the morning traffic felt far away. She had brought fresh copies of everything her cousin in data analytics had saved. The payment records to the junior analyst totaled $40,000, wired through a personal account my boss controlled. The original campaign files showed no leaks until the alterations appeared. Evelyn slid a new document across the bench. "There is something else you need to see," she said, her voice low. "My boss has been siphoning $210,000 from client budgets over the last 18 months. Small transfers, always under the radar. He used part of it to pay off gambling debts that are now spiraling. The people he owes do not send polite collection notices." Evelyn paused, then added the detail that made my skin crawl. "And the affair with my coworker, Ava Lopez. It is not just personal. She helped him alter the files. They have been planning this since last fall. I sat there absorbing the full weight of it. My boss had not picked me randomly. He had studied my contract, my bonus structure, and my trusting nature the same way he had targeted Harper Vaughn 3 years earlier. Harper had left quietly after discovering irregularities too humiliated to fight. Now my boss was repeating the playbook with me, except this time he had upgraded the stakes. The equity alone would cover his debts and leave him looking like the hero who saved the biggest account. My mentor, Evelyn, placed a hand on my arm. "Abigail Klein, the external investigator, has more coming. But you need to decide fast. The partners are scheduling a final review board for next week. If we do not present counter evidence before then, this becomes permanent." The following week became a blur of secret phone calls and hidden meetings. I worked from a borrowed laptop in my apartment, piecing together the timeline while my boss sent company-wide emails announcing my departure due to a breach of trust. The subject line alone felt like a public branding. My coworker, Emma Ruiz, forwarded one to me with a single line that carried heavy sarcasm. Then came the text from an unknown number at 2 a.m. It was my boss himself. "Do not drag this out, Isabella. Accept the severance and walk away clean. You do not want the full story coming out about your so-called dedication." The message included a screenshot of a forged performance log that made it look like I had missed critical deadlines. I stared at it until the screen blurred. He was still playing chess while I was barely keeping up. My investigator, Abigail Klein, delivered the next blow during a late-night video call. She had traced the gambling debts to underground sites and confirmed the affair through hotel records spanning 8 months. But there was a new complication. The junior analyst who had taken the $40,000 was now refusing to cooperate. My boss had gotten to him first with a bigger payout and a threat about his own student loans. Abigail rubbed her temples on the screen. "He is tightening the circle," she said. "We still have the data logs from Evelyn's cousin, but without a live witness, it becomes, he said, she said. The partners will side with the person who keeps the money flowing." My stomach twisted again. Every new piece of evidence felt like it came with a fresh trapdoor underneath. The pressure at home started bleeding into everything. My phone rang constantly with numbers I did not recognize, probably the same creditors circling my boss now that rumors of the internal shakeup had leaked. I stopped answering unknown calls. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, risked one more meeting with me at a small diner on the west side of town. She arrived looking over her shoulder. "Isabella, he called a team huddle yesterday and basically said anyone still in contact with you would be flagged as a risk. I am so sorry. I cannot lose this job. Not with my mortgage." Her eyes filled, and for the first time I saw the real cost spreading beyond me. My boss was not just destroying my career. He was turning the entire office into his personal shield. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, the folder of evidence spread across my kitchen table like a puzzle I could not quite solve. Everything pointed back to my boss, yet the power still sat with him. The partners cared about billings, not justice. By morning, I had made a decision that tasted like ash. I would present what I had to the review board, but I already knew the odds. My boss had spent months turning my name into poison. The final board meeting was scheduled for the following Friday. As I drove toward the office that day, my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown contact. It was a single line from the junior analyst who had flipped. "He knows you are coming." "Good luck." The words sat heavy in my gut because I realized the trap might already be one step ahead again. I pulled into the firm parking garage with my hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles ached. The folder of evidence from Evelyn Nguyen and Abigail Klein feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds in the passenger seat. The board meeting was set for 10 a.m. in the executive conference room on the top floor, the one with the sweeping views of the Albuquerque skyline that always made me feel small on my best days. I had spent the entire drive rehearsing what I would say, but that warning text from the junior analyst had thrown everything off balance. When I stepped into the room, the partners were already seated around the long mahogany table, like a jury, ready to deliver a verdict. My boss sat at the head, looking every bit the calm, collected leader in his tailored suit, a faint smile playing on his lips that did not reach his eyes. My co-worker, Ava Lopez, was positioned right beside him, her posture straight and her expression carefully neutral. 2 other senior managers flanked them, and Evelyn Nguyen had managed to secure a seat as an observer because of her long tenure as mentor. The air felt thick enough to choke on as I took the empty chair at the far end of the table. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, was not invited, but she had sent me a single text that morning wishing me luck, and it was the only thing keeping me grounded. My boss did not even wait for the partners to open the floor. "Isabella," he said, his voice smooth but laced with that cold sarcasm he reserved for people he had already written off. "I am glad you could join us. Though after everything we have uncovered, I am surprised you showed up at all. It takes a certain kind of person to face the consequences of their actions instead of running." The partners shifted in their seats, already leaning his way. He slid a fresh stack of papers across the table toward me, the pages crisp and damning. "These are the latest findings from our internal audit. The junior analyst has come forward with a full statement. He says You offered him payment to alter files to cover your own mistakes. My boss leaned back, eyes locked on mine. Care to explain that before we make this official? Or are we just going to waste more of the partner's time? The jab landed like a slap. I felt my stomach twist, but I forced my voice steady as I opened the folder in front of me. My boss? I never sent those emails or offered anyone anything. These documents from the data analytics team show the original campaign files were swapped with forged versions containing leaked competitor data. The payment records prove the junior analyst received $40,000, wired from an account you control. I laid the pages out one by one, my hands surprisingly calm even though my pulse hammered in my ears. I also have statements confirming the affair with my coworker Ava Lopez and the $210,000 siphoned from client budgets to cover your gambling debts. This is not about my integrity. This is about you trying to frame me to claim my $350,000 bonus and equity stake. The room went dead silent for a beat. My coworker Ava Lopez's face flushed, but she said nothing. One of the partners cleared his throat and looked to my boss for an explanation. My boss let out a short, sharp laugh that echoed off the glass walls, the sound full of contempt. "Isabella," he said, his tone dripping with mock pity, "you really thought bringing in some desperate junior analyst's word and a few cherry-picked screenshots would save you. The analyst already recanted everything this morning. He admitted you pressured him because you were falling behind on targets. As for the rest of those wild accusations, they are nothing but the desperate ramblings of someone who cannot accept she was not as indispensable as she believed." He turned to the partners, his expression shifting to practiced concern. "Gentlemen, this is exactly why the integrity clause exists. We cannot let one bad apple poison the entire firm." Evelyn Nguyen tried to speak up, her voice firm but measured. "I have reviewed the original data logs myself, and they do not match what my boss is presenting." But my boss cut her off before she could finish. "With all due respect, Evelyn, you are here as an observer, not an advocate. Let us not turn this into a personal vendetta." The partners exchanged glances, and I could see the calculation in their eyes. Billions in annual revenue flowed through my boss's accounts. My evidence felt suddenly flimsy against the weight of that money. Abigail Klein had warned me this could happen if the junior analyst flipped, but hearing it unfold in real time still felt like the floor dropping out from under me. My boss pressed his advantage, his next words cutting deep and personal. "Isabella, you have been a solid contributor, but let us be honest here. Some people are built for the pressure of leading major accounts, and some are not. You pushed too hard, made too many shortcuts, and now you are trying to drag everyone else down with you." He slid one final document across the table, a prepared exit agreement with my name already typed at the top. "Sign this quietly, accept the standard severance, and we will not pursue further action or blackball you in the industry. Refuse, and we go public with the full report. Your choice." The sarcasm in his voice was unmistakable, the way he said your choice like he already knew I had none. I stared at the paper, the words blurring for a second as the reality sank in. I could drag this into a legal battle call in every favor and every piece of evidence I had left. But Abigail Klein had already told me the partners would close ranks, and my name would be dragged through every industry chat group in the Southwest. Sophia Kim would likely lose her job if I pulled her in as a witness. Evelyn Nguyen could face retaliation for supporting me. The junior analyst had already been bought off again, and Harper Vaughn's statement from 3 years ago would not be enough on its own. Fighting meant burning every bridge I had ever built, and I would still probably lose. The alternative was walking away with a fraction of what I had earned, and carrying the label of someone who had been let go for cause. The room waited. My boss tapped his pen once, twice, the sound like a countdown. I felt the weight of every late night I had worked for him, every time I had trusted his praise, every moment I had believed I was building something real. In the end, I picked up the pen with a hand that no longer shook. I signed the agreement right there in front of all of them, the ink flowing like the last piece of my career disappearing. My boss smiled small and satisfied as the partners nodded their approval. "Case closed," he said quietly. "We appreciate your cooperation, Isabella. The firm wishes you the best in your future endeavors." I walked out of that building for the last time with nothing but a cardboard box and the severance check that would barely cover 3 months of rent. My reputation in Albuquerque marketing circles was already tainted within days. Offers dried up. Networking calls went unanswered. My best work friend, Sophia Kim, reached out once to say she was sorry, but that my boss had made it clear any contact would hurt her own standing. Evelyn Nguyen sent a single text offering to be a reference, but we both knew it would not carry much weight now. Abigail Klein followed up with a final report confirming my boss had received only a quiet internal warning and kept his position, the partners too invested in his revenue stream to rock the boat. He had won just like he had with Harper Vaughn 3 years earlier. I spent the next 6 weeks applying for jobs outside the state, each rejection feeling like another quiet confirmation that my boss's trap had worked perfectly. The painful choice I made that day in the boardroom kept my name from being completely destroyed, but it also meant I left with almost nothing. No bonus, no equity, no closure, and no real justice. I had protected the people I cared about at the firm, but the cost was my own career and the trust I once had in my own judgment. Some mornings, I still wake up wondering if I should have fought harder, even if it meant losing everything louder. The regret sits heavy, but so does the knowledge that I refused to let him turn me into the villain he needed me to be. I learned something brutal through all of this. Sometimes, the person you trust most at work is the one who has been measuring your worth in dollars and power the entire time. And walking away with your dignity intact can feel like defeat, even when it is the only move left. My boss is still there, still charming the partners, still building his next trap for whoever comes after me. I am starting over in a new city, with a new role that pays less and carries less prestige, but at least it is mine. Work can break you just as quietly if you let the wrong person in too close. Thank you for listening to my story. If you have ever had to choose between fighting a boss who held all the cards and walking away to save what little you had left, tell me in the comments what you chose and how it changed you. I read every single one, and it truly means the world to me.